We all look up at the night sky sometimes. We see the moon, the planets, a smear of stars. And we wonder, is anyone else out there? It's one of the oldest questions we have. It's a question that fuels science and stories, but it's always been abstract. It's a fun thought experiment. What if it stopped being an experiment? What if one day we got an answer? Not a UFO sighting on a grainy phone camera, not a strange story from a farmer, but real, solid, undeniable proof. We found intelligent life beyond Earth. The world wouldn't change overnight, but everything would change. It probably wouldn't start with a bang. No giant ship hovering over New York City. That's for the movies. It would likely start quietly. It would start in a sterile room, with a handful of tired scientists staring at a computer screen. Imagine a radio telescope in some remote desert. It's been listening to the static of the universe for decades. It collects petabytes of data. Most of it is noise, the hum of distant pulsars, the echo of the Big Bang. The team's job is to sift through that noise, looking for a pattern, something that doesn't look natural. One day, they find it. A signal. It's not loud, it's faint, but it's there, and it's structured. It's not random, it repeats, it contains prime numbers, or maybe a simple mathematical sequence. It's a clear, deliberate beacon, a lighthouse in the cosmic ocean. The first reaction wouldn't be a worldwide announcement. The first reaction would be doubt, deep, profound doubt. The scientists would check their equipment. They would run diagnostics. They would think it was a malfunction, or a prank, or a reflection of a human-made satellite. They would spend weeks, maybe months, trying to disprove it. They would be terrified of being wrong. The legacy of the WOW signal, a famous blip that was never found again, would hang over them. But the signal would remain. It would be steady. It would come from a fixed point in the sky, a point so far away that no human probe could have reached it. After exhausting every other possibility, they would have to face the truth. They found something. The next step is a phone call, not to the press. They would call their superiors, the head of the research institute. That person would call someone in the government. A quiet, encrypted message would travel up a chain of command that most of us don't even know exists. It's a protocol for this exact moment. For a short time, maybe a few days, maybe a week, the most important secret in human history would be held by a very small number of people. They would struggle with the weight of it. How do you tell the world? When do you tell them? What do you say? The secret wouldn't last. It never does. Someone would leak it. A junior analyst tells a friend. An email is intercepted. A journalist with a source deep inside the space program gets the tip of a lifetime. The story would break. At first, no one would believe it. It would be another internet rumor. It would be buried under celebrity gossip and political scandals. But the story would persist. Major news outlets would start picking it up, cautiously at first. Sources claim. Reports suggest. The pressure would build. Governments would issue vague denials, which would only add fuel to the fire. Finally, they would have to make it official. There would be a press conference. The President of the United States, or perhaps the Secretary General of the United Nations, would stand at a podium. Next to them would be the lead scientist, looking pale and overwhelmed. The speech would be simple, direct. For some time, we have been receiving a structured signal from a distant star system. After rigorous analysis, we have concluded that this signal is artificial in origin. We are not alone. And then, chaos. But not the kind you see in disaster films. Not immediate riots in the street. It would be a strange global pause. Everyone, everywhere, would stop what they were doing. They would look at their phones, their TVs, they would talk to their neighbors. For a single day, the whole of humanity would be focused on one single fact. The financial markets would go haywire, they would plummet, then surge, then level off in a state of utter confusion. What is the value of gold when you know there are other worlds? What is the future of a tech company when you know there is a technology far beyond our own? The internet would break. Not literally, but the sheer volume of traffic, of conversation, of memes and theories and prayers and panicked posts would be staggering. Every server would be pushed to its limit. The first few weeks would be defined by a global obsession. News channels would run 24/7 coverage. Scientists who had worked in obscurity their whole lives would become household names. Every detail of the signal would be analyzed. Where is it from? A red dwarf star 50 light years away. Well, what is it saying? We don't know yet. It's a complex mathematical language. We're trying to decode it. A new kind of unity would emerge, a fragile one. For a moment, our own conflicts would seem small. The border disputes, the trade wars, the political squabbles, they would all feel trivial in the face of this cosmic revelation. We wouldn't be Americans or Chinese or Nigerians. We would be humans, Earthlings. The sense of a shared identity would be powerful. People would gather in public squares, not to protest, but just to be together, to look up at the sky. But this unity would be temporary, because human nature would quickly reassert itself. The first big question would be who speaks for Earth? The United Nations would try to take the lead. They would form a committee. But every powerful nation would want control. The United States would argue it has the most advanced space program. China would point to its growing technological power. Russia would lean on its long history in space exploration. The smaller nations would demand a voice, fearing they would be shut out of the most important conversation in history. The project to decipher the signal and decide on a response would become a political football. Then the religious and philosophical crisis would begin. It would shake the foundations of many belief systems. Some religions might adapt easily. A vast universe created by a god could easily contain other forms of life. Pope Francis once said he would baptize a Martian if it asked. For these faiths, it would be a moment of awe, a confirmation of the grandeur of creation. But for others, it would be a catastrophe. Belief systems that place humanity at the center of a divine plan would face a terrible challenge. If we are not the chosen ones, the only ones, then what does that mean for our scripture, our prophets, our entire worldview? Some would deny the news entirely, calling it a hoax, a government conspiracy, a deception from the devil. New cults would spring up overnight, worshipping the Star Brothers, or preaching an apocalypse brought by the visitors. Faiths would splinter. Some people would lose their religion entirely, others would cling to it more fiercely than ever before. It would force a global conversation about God, purpose, and our place in the universe that we have never had before. While the philosophers and politicians argued the scientists would be working, the job of decoding the message would be the most difficult task we have ever undertaken. The aliens wouldn't be sending us a message in English. They wouldn't even be using a system based on our senses. They might not have eyes or ears. Their language could be pure mathematics, a string of data that represents their physics, their chemistry, their biology. It would be like finding a single book from a lost civilization written in a language with no Rosetta Stone. We would know it's a language, we could see the patterns, but we wouldn't know what the words mean. Progress would be slow, painfully slow. The initial excitement of the discovery would fade into the long, hard slog of academic work. It might take years, it might take a generation. And what if we did decode it? What would it contain? It might be a simple encyclopedia, the galactic library, information on physics that would rewrite our textbooks, biology that would show us new possibilities for life. This knowledge could be a gift. It could lead to cures for diseases, new sources of clean energy, a complete transformation of our world. But it could also be a poison. What would happen to our economy if a new energy source made oil worthless overnight? What would happen to our sense of purpose if we were just handed all the answers without the struggle of discovery? We could become a cargo cult, worshiping the technology of the gods without understanding it ourselves. Our own innovation might grind to a halt. Why bother with difficult research when you can just wait for the next chapter of the alien encyclopedia? And there's the question of a reply. Should we answer? It would be the most debated question on the planet. One camp would say, absolutely, we must. This is a chance to join a galactic community, to learn, to grow. We can't hide in our corner of the universe forever. Another camp would say, are you insane? We must stay silent. This is the dark forest theory. The universe is a dark forest, and every civilization is a hunter. To reveal your location is to invite attack. We know nothing about them. We don't know their intentions. They could be peaceful explorers, or they could be conquerors. Sending a message back would be like a child shouting in the jungle at night. It's a risk we can't afford to take. This debate would create new political divisions. The contact parties versus the silence parties. It would become a defining issue of our time. And if we did decide to reply, what would we say? How could we possibly summarize the human experience? Do we send them Shakespeare and Mozart? Do we send them the periodic table in our DNA sequence? Do we send them the history of our wars and our art? Who gets to choose the playlist for planet Earth? The discovery would also breed a new kind of fear, xenophobia on a cosmic scale. Right now, our us versus them thinking is limited to our own planet. We divide ourselves by nation, race, religion. But the arrival of a true them would change everything. Humanity would become us. And the aliens, no matter how distant, would become them. Politicians would exploit this fear. They would call for a massive increase in military spending, not for jets and tanks, but for space-based weapons. We must be able to defend ourselves. The idea of a potential threat, even 150 light years away, would be a powerful tool for control. It would justify surveillance, suppress dissent, and unite populations behind a strong leader. We might see a new global arms race aimed at the stars. The nature of the aliens themselves would be the biggest variable. Our science fiction tends to imagine them as being like us, bipedal with heads and limbs. But evolution on another world would follow a completely different path. They might be intelligent clouds of gas. They might be crystalline entities that live for millions of years. They might be a collective consciousness, a hive mind. What if they are so different that we simply can't understand them? What if their way of thinking is not based on logic as we know it? What if their morality is incomprehensible? We assume intelligence leads to certain things, like curiosity and empathy. That might just be us projecting our own values onto the cosmos. They could be intelligent and also utterly indifferent to us. Or they could see us the way we see insects. Interesting, perhaps, but not important. The inability to find common ground would be more terrifying than outright hostility. A monster you can fight is one thing. A god you cannot comprehend is another. Let's consider a few scenarios for what could happen long term. First, the benevolent scenario. The aliens are friendly, or at least curious. They are old and wise. After a long period of careful communication, we establish a dialogue. They share their knowledge. It's a bumpy road. Our society is thrown into turmoil as old industries die and new ones are born. But ultimately, it leads to a better future. We cure our diseases. We solve our climate problems. We learn to manage our planet. We become a junior member of a galactic club. It's the best case outcome where humanity grows up. Second, the indifferent scenario. They sent their signal long ago. It was a simple "we were here" message, a tombstone from a civilization that is now long dead. Or maybe they are still there, but they have no interest in talking to us. They are a billion years more advanced. We are to them like bacteria in a petri dish. We can study them from afar, but we can never engage with them. We would know that we are not the smartest kids in the block, but we would still be fundamentally alone. This would lead to a kind of cosmic melancholy, a constant reminder of our own insignificance. Third, the dangerous scenario. The signal was not a friendly hello. It was a probe. A way to see if a world is ripe for colonization, or maybe the message itself is the weapon. A complex computer virus that, once decoded, could infect our global networks. Or maybe they are just explorers, but with no regard for what they trample. Like humans building a dam that floods an anthill, they don't hate the ants. They just don't think about them at all. This is the scenario that keeps military planners up at night, the one where our first contact is also our last. But even without any of these dramatic outcomes, the simple knowledge that they exist would change us forever. Our culture would be split into two eras, before contact BC and after contact AC. Every book written, every piece of art created, every child born after that day would be part of a world that knows it is not alone. Our ambitions would shift. The drive to explore space would receive an unimaginable boost. We would pour resources into building faster ships, better telescopes. We would want to go there to see their world for ourselves. The 50 light year journey would seem impossible, but humanity has a way of achieving the impossible when it is properly motivated. It might take centuries, but we would try. A multi-generational mission to visit the source of the signal would become the grand project of our species. Our sense of time would change, too. We tend to think in terms of human lifespans or the histories of our nations, but contact with a civilization that may be thousands or millions of years older than us would force us to think on a cosmic timescale. It would make our own problems seem both urgent and fleeting. It would highlight our fragility as a species. We've only been around for a short while. We could easily wipe ourselves out before we ever get to meet our neighbors. The discovery would hold up a mirror to us. It would reveal our best qualities, our curiosity, our courage, our ability to unite in moments of wonder. It would also reveal our worst, our fear, our tribalism, our greed, our capacity for violence. The aliens wouldn't even have to do anything. Their mere existence would be a test for humanity. Can we work together? Can we overcome our petty differences to face something so much bigger than ourselves? Can we handle knowledge that might shatter our economies and our religions? Can we be wise enough to be quiet or brave enough to speak? I think in the end, it would be a mess. It would be beautiful and terrifying. It would bring out the best in us and the worst in us all at the same time. Or there would be hope and there would be despair. We would feel a profound sense of connection to every other human on the planet, and a profound sense of loneliness in a vast and ancient universe. We look at the sky and ask, is anyone out there? The answer, if it ever comes, will be less about them and more about us. The discovery of intelligent alien life would be the ultimate challenge. It would force us to finally decide what it means to be human.